Get off my land. The eviction notice crumpled tightly in Caleb Prescott's calloused hands. The ink smeared under the weight of the rain as Deputy Holden turned and walked away, his boots crunching on the gravel like nails into a coffin. The land Caleb's father and grandfather had bled for, fought to keep, was no longer his. The developers had won. Caleb had spent his entire life here, waking before dawn to mend fences, feed livestock, and tend the crops. It wasn't much, never was, but it was home. His father had returned from Vietnam only to fight again for this soil, and now, with a few strokes of a pen, a corporate giant had declared his family's legacy worthless. "You've got 60 days, the lawyer had said flatly. That's all the time before the demolition crews move in. 60 days to pack up a lifetime. 60 days before it all vanished. Caleb fought back with everything he had. Town hall meetings, petitions, pleas to the local council. But they didn't see the sweat soaked into the earth or the decades of sacrifice. They saw one thing, dollar signs. Caleb Prescott was just another farmer to them. That night, he sat on his porch, staring out over the fields as a storm churned on the horizon. Thunder rumbled in the distance, an echo of the turmoil in his chest. His father's voice echoed in his memory. Prescott's don't back down. But what was left to fight for? Caleb's stomach twisted at the thought of bulldozers ripping through these fields. The crops flattened, the farmhouse leveled, a parking lot and luxury villas replacing his family's history. He sighed, ready to accept the end. That's when he heard it. A deep rumble. Not thunder. Something else. Caleb stood abruptly, gripping the wooden porch railing as the sound grew louder, vibrating through his chest like a drumbeat of war. The wind tore across the fields, flattening stalks in its wake. Then came the lights, blinding white beams cutting through the darkness. A massive shadow descended from the sky. An Apache helicopter. It wasn't passing over. It was landing, right in the middle of his field. Caleb staggered back, shielding his face as the rotor wash sent dust spiraling. His heart pounded. The storm was forgotten. The side door of the chopper swung open. A man stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, military fatigues. Caleb's pulse thundered. Who was he? And why was he here? The helicopter's engine wound down, the deafening roar fading to a steady hum. The man advanced slowly, surveying the land like he was confirming something. Then his eyes locked on Caleb. Caleb Prescott. The voice cut through the night like steel. Caleb swallowed hard. Yeah, who's asking? The man pulled a folded document from his jacket and held it out. You're going to want to read this. Caleb hesitated. His fingers closed around the paper. The military seal at the top made his stomach twist. This wasn't about a land dispute anymore. The name on the man's uniform tag gleamed under the porch light. Colonel Nathaniel Merci. His presence. The helicopter. His tone. This man was authority incarnate. But why was the Department of Defense interested in his farm? Caleb Prescott. Mercer repeated, his tone firm. Caleb nodded. We need to talk about your land, Mercer said. Caleb's fists clenched. If you're here on behalf of the developers, save it. I'm not selling. Mercer gave a short, humorless chuckle. I'm not with them. I represent the Department of Defense. Caleb's frown deepened. What the hell does the military want with my farm? Mercer took a slow breath. You don't know, do you? Know what? Caleb asked, his patience fraying. Mercer's expression hardened. This land, your land, it was once a classified military installation. The words hit Caleb like a blow to the gut. That's impossible, he said, shaking his head. This land's been in my family for generations. Your father knew? Mercer said quietly. Caleb's breath caught. No, he whispered. Mercer stepped forward and handed him a thick folder. See for yourself. Reluctantly, Caleb opened it. Inside were yellowed documents, faded schematics, aerial photographs. He flipped to one in black and white. His father, wearing a uniform, standing beside a younger Colonel Mercer. You knew him, Caleb murmured. Mercer nodded. He was one of the few civilians trusted to run this site. Project Griffin. That was the code name on every page. A covert Cold War facility, hidden beneath what appeared to be an ordinary farm. Underground bunkers, weapons testing, secret drills, all beneath Caleb's feet. But why now? Caleb asked. Mercer's gaze darkened. Because the developers aren't who they claim to be. They have foreign backers. We've been monitoring them for years. We believe they're after something buried here. What is it? Caleb asked. Mercer's voice dropped lower. We're not sure. But whatever it is, it was important enough to hide. Caleb's chest tightened. And they're coming for it. Mercer nodded grimly. If they find it, your family's legacy and national security could be at risk. Caleb's fists clenched. They had already taken everything. Now they wanted his father's legacy too. I won't let them, he said through gritted teeth. That's why I'm here, Mercer replied. They walked into the field, toward a section where the grass grew patchy. Mercer knelt, brushed away dirt, and revealed a rusted steel hatch. Caleb's breath caught. It was here the whole time? Mercer nodded. Your father hid it well. What's inside? Caleb asked. Mercer's expression was grim. We don't know. For weeks, Caleb worked alongside Mercer and a team of specialists. Ground-penetrating radar revealed vast underground chambers, more complex than anyone had guessed. But before they could open the hatch, they needed to stop the developers legally. The military's legal team unearthed documents proving Project Griffin had never been decommissioned. The military still had legal claim. And the developers? They were exposed as a shell corporation tied to a foreign intelligence agency. Their project wasn't about real estate. It was about infiltration. In court, Caleb stood firm. He wasn't just a farmer anymore. He was a guardian, and he had an army behind him. The developer's attorney smirked, dismissing him as a desperate man, until Colonel Mercer entered the courtroom with proof. Classified documents. National security concerns. The judge had no choice but to grant an injunction. Caleb had won his land back, but the fight wasn't over. The hatch was finally opened. A steel staircase led down into darkness. With Mercer at his side, Caleb descended. He was walking into his father's past, and into his future. Months later, Project Griffin was reborn. But this time, it wasn't a secret installation. It was a sanctuary. The land became a rehabilitation center for veterans. A place to heal, to honor sacrifice. Caleb stood beside Mercer, watching men and women train, rebuild their lives, and find purpose again. I still can't believe they approved this, Caleb said. Mercer smiled. You earned it. Caleb nodded. My dad would have liked this. Mercer's eyes softened. He'd be proud. At the end of the field stood Brigadier General Thomas Prescott, his father's best friend. You must be Caleb, the general said. Yes, sir. Your father would be proud, Thomas said quietly. Caleb's throat tightened. Thank you, he whispered. This land wasn't just soil and crops anymore. It was history. It was healing. It was home. And Caleb Prescott was its protector. He had honored his father's legacy and found his own.